Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
You know who I can do without? I can do without the people in the video store.
Which ones?
All of them. They never rent quality flicks. They always pick the most intellectually devoid movie on the racks.
And now, on with the show.
This project has worldwide ramifications.
It will affect the very existence of our planet.
3 scientists were killed in the past 12 hours. That leaves only one man. You, Mr. Morales, must be protected.
In an adventure that spans the globe, Agents Chris Cannon and Mark Austin have 3 days to stop a band of assassins and make the Dallas connection. The Dallas connection, where beauty meets brawn. And brawn meets brains.
The right cross is something you're born with, not like that kung fu crap.
Don't miss the Dallas Connection, starring Bruce Penhall, Mark Barrier, Penthouse Pets Julie Smith, Sam Phillips, Pet of the Year Julie Strain, and Playboy Playmates Wendy Hamilton and Kim Mallon.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net's Loose Cannon, and I am one of your video store clerks this evening, this hot summer evening. I am Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as I bring in people from all across the city, the country, the world, wherever the interwebs connect us via Discord. I'm joined by my brother from the city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex, the producer.
And a person that I admire, look up to, and is definitely the smartest guy on this Discord call.
Oh, I'm Aaron Pollyea.
So yes, guys, we are back here celebrating the summer of Sidaris. We are looking at the films of Andy Sidaris and then his son much later on. We are nearing the end of the summer of Sidaris. We only have 2 more movies left after this, his final movie and his first movie. But tonight we are looking at 2 more connection in the Bombs, Bullets, and Babe series. We are looking at The Dallas Connection, which came out back in 1994, and Day of the Warrior, which came out in 1996, which I think is the year I went to high school. So anyway, guys, this is a lot of Sidaris. I'm so tired.
You're tired.
I'm so tired.
We're getting the second of the Sons movies out of the way because
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, no, you can tell when Andy Sidaris' son directs. It's a much different film. I think I said in our like private messages that Dallas Connection has this feel that it doesn't have the wink and the nod towards the camera that all the other Andy Sidaris films have.
This is much more generic, like anybody could have directed. When you don't really notice how much Andy has a specific look and style until you see somebody else direct the same people in one of his movies.
Yeah, like it's kind of a vibe you get, and it seems like Andy was able to pull a certain performance and a certain, I don't know, just a life came out of these pictures.
Yeah.
These 2 feel weird. Like Dallas Connection, I will come out right now, I fucking hated that. Day of the Warrior has some of the fun, but I hate the plot. So it's so weird.
Day of the Warrior is Andy Sidaris' back as the director and writer.
Yeah.
There's just, I guess that's why it was funnier. Like, but still, we will get to that.
Yeah, Dallas Connection feels like any generic direct-to-video movie. It doesn't really feel like a Sidaris direct-to-video movie.
It feels like it was made by AI in the 90s, like Mad Lib.
They brought back, at least they brought back the remote control stuff.
Oh yeah. With the little RC.
But like outside of some outrageous dialogue, inappropriate stuff that happens in this, I don't think there's a memorable scene in this. Like it has the requisite sex and everything, but it if this movie did not have Julie Strain doing whatever she does and says whatever she says in this would have been almost unwatchable completely.
Yeah, I mean,
Julie
it's
Strain
weird.
brought it. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I really remember are the two quote unquote assassins that end up working for the good guys anyway, with Cobra and what was the other one's fucking ridiculous Scorpion. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, you've been playing Mortal Kombat, you motherfucker. And it's so goofy. The one line
you're actually thinking that this is supposed to make sense.
Oh my God. Okay. So there's a line. I'm sitting here. I'm looking at Beaker, who is my little orange idiot cat. And Cobra says to, I think it's Chris Cannon, one of the agency guys or whatever. And he's like, hey, do you bite? She's like, I bite often. And I looked at the cat. I'm like, are you hearing this? I hate this. And he just looked at me and went, nope, and just noped out. Oh my God. Like, when the cat gets upset, you know the movie's not great. That's the thing, too. Like, there was no memorable action sequences. I mean, even the gun seemed a little bit more generic this time around. Although it was kind of cool seeing an M4 with a grenade launcher, so that's cool. But yeah, it was just so weird. Plus, Julie Strain was like weird. Like, I'm Black Widow. I have assassins at my beck and call, and it was like a Bond villain paint by numbers. It was fucking goofy, and that's the only way I can describe this movie. It's goofy.
It opened with the most blatant fake simulated sex they've ever done in the series.
Oh yeah,
but
really
obviously
egregious.
fake. But
Very
also
egregious.
obviously really fake. Like, it didn't even attempt to make it look sensual or realistic or even like, gussy it up to make it fancy. And then it's just
paycheck sex.
And
Yeah.
It's just, and like, I'm like, oh man, like, I just don't get what's happening here. And here's the question. I watched the whole movie. I still don't know what it was about.
Yes, thank you. I'm not the only one. Like, that's the one I tried to pay attention to.
I always assume that there's either diamonds or something being stolen. Is this? Was this about a computer thing again? I couldn't tell.
So it was about a computer program that could actually use satellites to detect weapon systems, even under cloud cover. So, like, I guess really detailed radar. And the scientist is asking for protection from the lethal ladies, and they have to protect him. That's it.
Okay,
Like,
and
it's that simple.
And it had to do with like a scientist in Hong Kong, where for whatever reason they still had all the foliage of I guess was this the one that was filmed in like Shreveport?
Well, okay, so there is a lot of stuff that's filmed in the Shreveport area later on in the movies. I mean, it starts before Donna Spear leaves the series. Andy moves back to Louisiana because Andy Sidaris, believe it or not, is from Louisiana originally.
Okay.
And so anyway, they move back and they start doing a lot of filming there just because I guess he was closer to family, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, they had a lot of stuff filmed in Louisiana. The next movie is also the same way. There's a lot of stuff in the Shreveport area.
Okay, because like there was no attempts to like even cheap movies when they try to pretend it's another country, they'll do things like maybe change the lighting a little bit or the color temperature. No,
or
like
street signs or something.
Every single international / across the states location looked exactly the same, so it was very hard to tell where they were supposed to be unless you specifically read like when it pops up on screen and it's like Hong Kong or wherever. And I was
I do think they filmed a couple shots inside buildings in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, because I actually do recognize some of the buildings down there because I used to spend a lot of time in Dallas specifically when I was in my like mid-20s.
And you could see those buildings outside the windows when they were having like a conference scene. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, sure, but yeah, I just remember thinking it's something to do with computers, but they're storing metal or what looked to be magnets inside of a floppy disk, which would erase the floppy disk, which would mean that it's completely useless. It's also the wrong kind of floppy for the era.
Yeah, it was so weird. Like, it's like they want to invent this future tech, but it makes no sense. And how you have to have 4 of these computer chips, and you need someone to insert them in the right order. So
instead of the connection being like the French connection or like a conspiracy, it's literally about connecting the computer databases.
Yeah. And then all
Dallas.
this happened to be in Dallas. I mean,
I guess it kind of it's 1994, so like the internet is only about, for the general public, has only been out for a year.
Yeah.
So the idea that the general public would have heard of a computer network is there, but not know how it works. So you could get away with just making up whatever you wanted. Still, so I get that. You got to think of it in the context that this movie, as of right now, is 30 years old.
Yeah,
So-
like I'm trying to think of some of the contemporary movies that would have been about around this. I know
Because-
Hackers wasn't out for another year. Sneakers was 92, but it was more cyber.
The net was
Rock.
95, so this predates most realistic attempts at explaining the internet to the public.
But
There's one first appearance in this movie that we'll see in Day of the Warrior and in Return to Savage Beach, which is the last film. And that's the actress Julie K. Smith, who actually plays the same character in each one of these last 3 films. She plays Cobra. Like Julie Strange, she was actually a Penthouse pet.
Okay.
Was she
And
the blonde or
the short-haired blonde?
Is she supposed to be British or European or something? I can't remember. Is she the one that they're like is from the European division of the agency or something?
Yes. And it's because she was actually born in West Germany.
Oh,
she
is
has
that's
a little
the
bit of-
explanation? Okay.
Yeah, she has a little bit of an accent when she's not paying attention.
Well, I was going to say, because I was trying to figure out, is she trying to put an accent on and forgetting, or is she not trying to put an accent on and then forgetting?
And I also need to mention with Julie K. Smith, we have seen her in a movie before, guys. We've seen her in Angel 3, The Final Chapter.
Oh,
you know what? Those
right.
Angel movies, I remember talking about those, and I really liked the
The first one was the first one was a good movie. The second one was a fun movie, and the third one was not really connected at all.
Agreed. I actually like the first 2. I think they're both decent movies. The third one's weird, but it's strange that she has this other connection to another movie that we have at least talked about that's kind of obscure.
90s big boob action movies.
Yeah, like I don't know. I mean, it's hard to look at this one as I don't know, like this one I want to say, because it is that fun, absurd babes, bullets, and guns that, the Sidaris films are typically known for. But here, it just didn't click with me. I mean, I like the idea of Scorpion and Cobra, going against Chris Cannon.
Were you gonna say G.I. Joe?
Yeah, well, it's weird because you know what? Actually, you kind of hit on something there. It does have elements of a Saturday morning cartoon where it almost feels like there's a bigger organization out there, like Cobra, for example, but it's always run by that South American actor Rodrigo something or other. But yeah,
Rodrigo Obregon. Who I have now convinced is the actual star of all these movies.
Oh yeah, because he's in almost all of them, and
I think he
actually
missed like what 2 out of like 12.
Yeah, it's only a couple that he's not in, and he always has fun doing it.
Yeah, it's like when he shows up, I'm like, okay, are we getting clean shaven? Are we getting mustache version? Are we getting mutton chop? Are we getting 1890s Irish bartender mustache style? Oh, that's what we're getting for this one.
He was a Russian diplomat in one.
That's right. And he always gives it 110%.
Yeah, that guy always tries. I mean, ultimately, like, there's not much to really say about the Dallas connection. Like, I think
that, like, nobody really came back for this one except for Julie and Bruce Penhall, who for some reason is not playing the same character.
Yeah, and he's not wearing his fucking leather vest again.
They also had almost no scenes where it made it seem like they were actually part of a agency with a base, or like it didn't have the radio segments. It didn't have really anything.
It didn't have KSXY.
Yeah.
Yeah, once they move away from the Hawaii stuff, it does feel different. And I think I said to Darlene when we first watched this movie years ago, it felt like a placeholder movie in a lot of ways. Like, it was originally an Andy Sidaris movie, but somebody else ended up making it.
Yeah, like, in looking at it, it was written by his son. It's almost like his son saw what he was doing and was like, I can do that, and then didn't get what his dad did to make it special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, Sidaris has this flair where I think you get the energy and vibe, and I've said this on multiple episodes of this showcase, that you get a sense of fun. You get a sense that the actors are involved. This one, outside of like Julie Strain and maybe the other two, Scorpion and Cobra, everybody else just seems like they're just kind of going through the like kind of paces here. I don't know. There's just, I wish I liked this more than I did, because I think the idea is kind of interesting, but under Sidaris' son, it's just it's lifeless, and I don't like this, and I really don't like saying that, because one of the things that you guys have given me over the course of doing this podcast and our friendship over the last, man, it feels like we've been hanging out for what, 4 or 5 years now, minimum at least.
The pandemic did last like a dozen years.
Yeah,
it's aged us.
Yeah, and it's like, I like seeing things that I'm not used to, stuff that would hide on the back of the video store shelf, because sometimes you find some really cool stuff, and sometimes you're introduced to a genre you're not necessarily familiar with. I know, Alex, when you and I first started kind of hanging out, we watched really bad 90s and 2000 action movies. You'd come over to my house for an afternoon, we'd grab a pizza, and we'd watch something stupid. And now that we're watching this with a more critical eye, I'm like, hey, I kind of enjoy this. This is kind of fun. And then when Aaron suggested we started doing the Sidaris stuff, when we started seeing the beginning of Molokai Cargo, I kind of like that stuff with like Donna and Nicole and all that. And I thought it was actually kind of neat. Like, there was kind of a neat beginning of like a storyline, and then it just fucking evaporated.
Like Malibu is a little bit on its own, even though it still feels like a 70s movie, even though it's made in the 80s. But like, in reality, the first 4 have a very similar motif and feel, and then the rest are sort of wishy-washy.
Yeah. And I don't really know why, but like I said, before Donna Spear goes, even though she's like some of her later movies, you already feel that like peak Sidaris is gone. They're still good because Donna Spear has such charisma on screen, and like Roberta Vasquez is there. She is eating up the scenery. You still have Cynthia Brimhall there, and all of these actresses have amazing charisma. And they're really pulling the films along. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that like Julie Strain doesn't have charisma, because she does.
A different type.
It's a totally different type, and she wants to actually eat the scenery rather than like wink and nod at the camera, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Where with like Donna Spear and everybody else, they're having fun with you and enjoying doing the movie, but they're taking it seriously, whereas like Julie Strain isn't taking it seriously, but she's still having fun.
Yeah, and it's also, it's really like, it's the transition from the 80s feel of his movies to the 90s feel. You can see like the 90s was all Julie Strain, even though the early 90s there's like a transition, obviously, but like you can see it, and there's also a different feel for just how they're made. And you know, moving forward, I think we're probably done with Dallas Connection.
Because there's just not a lot in the film except boobs, guns, and bullets, right?
Well, boobs, guns, bullets, and then the line that if you look up the movie online, that's the line that you'll find on YouTube. And it's wildly inappropriate.
Crazy.
Yeah, but it's lightened a little bit by her having the quip that comes after she says it. because it becomes even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we'll just leave it there. We're just not even going to say it.
Yeah, just no, I'm good.
It's something so ridiculous that when it happened, I laughed so hard I had to rewind it because I missed what happened the next 30 seconds, laughing out of disbelief.
For sure. But the next movie has a lot of crazy stuff in it, and you can tell Andy Sidaris is back.
Well, I guess he took a 3-year hiatus from making the films himself, right? So
yeah.
So would that have been maybe like during his so he moved while filming one of them, and then I guess after he moved, he didn't make any movies for 3 or 4 years, right? So,
well, he was also getting sick.
Is he? Oh, he was already ill at that point.
Yeah. As far as I know.
Well, I mean, it's funny how usually people move away to the islands for the fresh air when they're not feeling well. But I guess, yeah, if you want to come home to where your family is.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was cancer. He was suffering from cancer.
It was okay. So yeah, that makes sense. You'd want to be honestly on the mainland to get some of the best treatment.
Yeah, and it was actually specifically throat cancer that did him in.
Oof.
Yeah,
pretty
pretty
rough.
rough.
Fun. So but he still continued to want to work and make movies. Wow, that's something.
That is commitment.
Looking at Day of the Warrior, it's these. We'll talk about this last movie the next time, but it was part of the last 2 movies that he made. In '96 and '98. I don't know about Return to Savage Beach, but for Day of the Warrior, this was, another one where it looked different the way it was shot. And this was the one, remember how, Mike, I talked about how there was like a shift in the 80s. You still had a ton of independent movies going to theaters, small independent theaters and drive-ins. That was popular. And then they would, crop it, do whatever to sell to the video market. Then in the early 90s, it was all about the direct-to-video market. So they would purposely frame things so that they were meant to be full frame, and they used different film stock. These last 2 movies, I'm going to assume the next one as well, have an even more streamlined look to them and how they're filmed, because this was filmed specifically for Cinemax.
Oh.
So it was meant to obviously hit home video and then hit European theatrical markets, but this was the first one he filmed with the intent to distribute it on premium cable. So I don't know if that influenced anything in particular to content, but it definitely influenced the way it looked. Everything that he shot now is framed, even though we're watching it in widescreen, because it was filmed in widescreen. If you look, he doesn't have anything happen that isn't center of camera.
Yeah, you're right. Now that you mention that, actually.
So, and you can do it multiple ways when you're cropping it for home, like for home video or television, where you can do a pan and scan cropping, but it's usually more expensive if you want to make it so that you have to go frame by frame and frame it. It's a lot easier to do it if you just film everything in the center of the screen, so you can just crop the edges off and not worry about it. So that's what he did. So there's less happening, on the edges or taking into account the whole image. So it's a little, it's funny. It's a busier movie than the last one, but at the same time, it's busier, but all happening in the center of the screen. So this is one of, I think, 2 movies that he did with Marcus Buff Bagwell, and I remember them advertising this on WCW.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Was Turner or whatever. I didn't have cable. I didn't get TBS or anything or TNT where I lived at home. But when I would visit my grandparents, I would stay up late, and my thing was I would stay up late when I was with them because I just didn't seem to have a bedtime when I was there, especially on like summer vacation and that in school. And I would go there and I would watch WCW wrestling, which at the time I didn't even realize was different from WWF. Because I saw Hogan and I'm like, oh, this is wrestling. And they would sometimes have commercials, and they had an advertisement. And they're like, it was Buff Bagwell. He's going to be in a movie, and it was Day of the Warrior.
Wow.
And I was like, they're advertising that on TV. And it's like, I guess because he was off because he was injured or something, but they were talking about it, and I remember thinking, oh, maybe I should see that someday. Flash forward 20 years and I finally see it.
You know what? You just kind of made me realize what Sidaris movies are. And what I mean by that is, when you mentioned you would watch movies or stuff late during the summer because you didn't have a bedtime. That's what Sidaris Movies is. This is the after midnight, after Saturday Night Live, and there's something on between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., not 4.
It's the City TV late great movies where they start at like midnight or 12:30 on a Friday.
You feel a little dirty watching them, but you had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's weird because I can't think of many movies modernly that fit that bill.
Because they don't. It's not a market that exists anymore with streaming. You just watch whenever, right? Like that's why like Cinemax and all that, they stopped making their direct to video movies for them. They just somebody makes whatever movies they want, put them on streaming, and then they just sell it to them and they air it whenever they feel like it. You don't really see. I know like CBS tried making some direct to TV movies in the last. That's probably almost 10 years ago. They had a series that they were making with what's his name, Magnum PI. Yes, called like Jesse Stone, based on like murder mysteries. They tried to do that again, and they would put them on TV like 1 or 2 a year, and they make it like tried to make it event viewing, and it got ratings with older people, but like young viewers just were like, I'm not turning in on a Saturday night at 9 p.m. to watch this. So like that, the idea of that is mostly gone, which is kind of sad. You do still get it sometimes with streaming platforms that are doing like miniseries, or an HBO. HBO will always get people to watch movies, but like outside of HBO, you don't really hear a lot of like Showtime or TNT movies or USA Network movies anymore. They don't really exist. So that was a period from like 1995 when cable went everywhere until like 2005, and then that was that 10-year period where you saw a lot of stuff like this popping up.
Yeah, because like this, Aaron, when you and I did a show with Enrique about USA Up All Night, this feels exactly like the type of movie you would see hosted by a host of some type, be it like a horror host or just kind of your general kind of goofy bullshit. And
I'm pretty sure that Rhonda actually did have a couple Sidaris movies that she did. I'm pretty sure she did.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because I like that's the type of culture I don't necessarily know. I don't know. For me personally, I miss that type of culture. That's probably nostalgia calling to me, but I think that speaks to a very specific type of fun type of movie. And most of the Sidaris movies seem to fit in that vibe. With this one, Day of the Warrior, it tries to go back to the Molokai Cargo days where it's fun, winky at the camera.
But it's almost too silly.
Yeah, because they do the explosion with the cartoony bullshit. And it's a thing, and then Buff Bagwell shows up dressed like a Native American, and I was like, what?
Buff Bagwell shows up dressed like Tatanka, but then his backstory is that he's like the ultimate warrior.
Yeah,
and
supreme warrior.
And he's in the ring like for 2 or 3 minutes, doesn't really do anything. It's all improvised. That's one thing I'll give. This one has a lot more improv. It seems like half of Julie's like mannerisms, things that she does, and things that she says aren't scripted.
The guy who plays her sidekick, Fu, he has got great comedic timing. I will say that. I really enjoyed him.
He's usually been relegated as like henchman in movies, right?
Yeah, but say that's the other Asian henchman guy. If you can't get Al Long, you call this guy.
Well, you'll probably remember him from Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes, I know
he's you. Like he's got that. He's one of the few guys that gets like prominent screen time during that big fight at the beginning of the movie. And then
he's the one that in this movie he gets knocked out by Julie Strain's boobs.
Yes. And then he's also and he's an Elvis impersonator.
Yeah.
Which again, I thought that was actually pretty clever. That I actually did have a bit of fun with.
And did they name him based on the Fu Manchu mustache that he doesn't actually have?
I don't know. I don't know. He's in the next movie.
Well, you're talking about G.I. Joe before, Mike. He's in G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra.
Oh, shit! I think you're right.
He's one of the like big bad guy henchmen, even though he's like older already at that point.
I'm gonna have to rewatch those movies again because I've rewatched them during the summer, and you know what? I will go on the record. I'm not gonna die on this hill, but I kind of like the live action G.I. Joe movies, all three of them, including Storm
I
Shadow.
think he's in a blink and you'll miss it moment in Mortal Kombat as well.
See, I fucking thought so, because there's a guy who pops out of the floor in Shang Tsung's Dungeon of Souls, and he has like dual knives or some bullshit.
That's him.
I fucking thought so. I'm like, you look really familiar, man.
Like right near the end when Liu Kang's fighting all the things in Outworld.
Yeah.
And I think he's
talking. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's not quite as prominent as Al Leong is, but if you've seen like some popular cult movies of the last 30 years, you've probably seen him in it.
Yeah, he's like, if Al Young is the premium brand, this guy's like the Walgreens exclusive. You know what I mean? Like, you'll see him here and there, and when he shows up, he's great, but you just don't see him that often.
The only person he didn't get that was like, hey, let's like outside of I'm not going to count what's his name,
James Hong.
Well, yeah, I'm not counting James Hong, but like if you're counting all the B movie guys, he didn't get the guy that played Uncle Benny in Lethal Weapon 4 and also was it Rush Hour or something? You know that guy with the glasses, the older Asian gentleman? He seemed to play Uncle Benny or a character named Uncle Benny in like 5 movies in the late 90s all at once. So he didn't have him, and he didn't have like, there's a couple other henchmen that you see in a lot of movies, but like they had the 2 main ones in most of these movies.
So Aaron, how would you sum up the plot of Day of the Warrior?
Well, I can sum up the plot, and then I want to mention like first scene.
Yes.
Like the people that we first see in this. So it's basically that the agency, the Lethal Ladies agency's computers get hacked, and it's basically like a giant leak on all of their agents. So now they need to like get all this information back under their control, because they find out a warrior, played by a WCW wrestler who we've already talked about, now has all of this stuff because he's hired a whole bunch of people to steal it for him. And I guess he has gotten all of his power through like smuggling drugs and sexual slavery.
Yeah, they don't really explain how he's a mastermind or what his goals are.
Yeah, he just kind of is. So they all have to hunt him down before he's able to get the information out to a seller. And he does everything in his power to make that more difficult for himself. But I'll talk about some people that we first see in this now. Okay. That's about as much as I can sum up the plot. The plot is very thin, okay? So we have Julie Smith, again, appearing in this as the same character, Cobra. We get the first appearance of Ray Howlett, who was an American Gladiator. She is Kim. She's in that weird, like, puffy black dress at the end of the movie where she tries to fist fight Cobra at the end of the movie. Okay, we see her. And we have Shay Marks, who plays Tiger, and Shay Marks was another Playmate. She actually appears in the final movie, Return to Savage Beach. And I guess she was going to be the new leading lady right next to Julie Strain if these movies would have continued.
Like, do you happen to know, had there been plans to make more, or just they weren't lucrative anymore?
Yes, there were plans to make more, but Andy Sidaris was getting too ill. In fact, it was Marcus Bagwell that really kind of stunned Andy Sidaris with his writing chops. Believe it or not.
Honestly, that doesn't surprise me. Simply because like he had been on TV already for like 6 or 7 years, I think, at like mainstream TV. Think about having to do improv every, 2 or 3 times a week on national television. He would have been around writers that could write on their feet really quickly. So I get that. I could see why he probably would have been decent enough to help.
So I guess he had pitched a 3-movie prequel series with the Warrior to Andy Sidaris, and Andy didn't really click on it for various reasons, being that it didn't really fit his style. Some of it really didn't fit his style. But in a lot of interviews before his death, Andy Sidaris said it was one of his greatest regrets not working more with Marcus Bagwell, that he wanted to do more movies with him. So
And
there
I
were
could
sort of plans brewing, but then he was starting to get too ill.
I can see that. And I do understand that. Like, a lot of those wrestler guys, even if they don't become like super crazy famous, they got to be charismatic people. So they're to do what they do. So I could see, being around them and then wanting to work with them. And I mean, how many wrestlers have we seen now that had, second careers as direct-to-video guys, right? So I it could have brought some extra eyes on it, but then it would have taken the focus away from the women, right? So it depends on what he wanted to do. Maybe it would have been interesting if his son had taken on that series instead of the Warrior stuff, because it could have had a different identity then.
It could have, but I think it would have still. Most people would have still come to those movies even with his son directing and writing. They would have probably still come and seen it because they expected like the Lethal Ladies style, that the women were going to actually be the focus of the movies.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that makes sense. This movie,
Did you notice all the movie posters for other Andy Sidaris movies in it?
Yes,
I didn't actually.
I did. I also thinking back on this. This movie is solved with a wrestling match.
Yeah, yep.
Did you also get? I couldn't find him in the credits, but I paused it. I am 99% sure that the one henchman that Bagwell has, timing-wise, I don't know if it would have lined up. I thought it was Kane from WWF, Glenn Jacobs.
He supposedly Bagwell actually had his tag team guy working as a stunt double on this.
That would also make sense. But yeah, like I saw, I was trying to see if there would be any more wrestler guys show up, because they're willing to do work for basically nothing when they're not in the ring. Did you notice, like, Mike, how many things he was aping off of other people for his repertoire of his character? Like, obviously we talked about the Warrior or Ultimate Warrior and all that. He kills people using the Tombstone pile driver.
Oh God! See, I was like, I recognize some of this shit.
Yeah, he just does like the Undertaker, just picks the guy up and just cracks his neck and kills him. And it's like, but he has all these. Why is he? So he's a pro wrestler who took on the moniker of the Warrior because his mom died, and then nothing made sense.
Well, and then watching Julie Strain wrestle him, I was watching it with Darlene, and we kept saying, Julie Strain could probably kick his ass. We know how badass she actually kind of is. And
in real life, he was a big wimp. Like, he was not a tough guy, real wrestler who became a wrestler. He's a guy who, like, his dad was like a race car driver or something, and he was just a guy who wanted to be famous and wanted to be like a model.
Okay, but I mean, we kept thinking Julie Strain's actually pretty hardcore.
Yeah,
and Andy Sidaris had to try to stop her from doing sword kata all the time. She's the one that did those naked sword dances just randomly, and Andy Sidaris thought, boy, that looks really cool, I'll film it. It's because she loved playing with swords and fighting.
Now, this isn't the one that her husband was in, is it? That's the next one, right?
I think it's the next one, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, other than the fact that it was nice to see Sidaris back, and there was it was more goofy, it seemed more improv involved in this, it still was kind of missing, the feel. It was clear that this was the time they rebranded it. Like, this was the first movie that opened up with the whole Lethal Ladies, like a Lethal Ladies film or something, it says. At the beginning, so you can see he was trying to brand himself and trying to finally put it all together here. And it's interesting to me because it was so late in the movie series that it feels like it was only around now that he was starting to realize that maybe I could brand this and package it together with other things and under a certain banner.
And
So
it is weird because you're right, but at the beginning of every film, have you noticed that the font in all of the credits is exactly the same?
yeah,
That I have
always
noticed,
starts-
actually.
It's exactly the same Malibu Bay Films logo that's always used. Like the Skyhawks thing that's in these last two movies that we watched is new, but like to me, there's already branding. You have the Malibu Bay Films, you have this very specific font, and you had, at least through the beginning of this film series, Molokai Cargo. And all these kind of aspects do already try to like move into a universe. It's already there. But he just never really did anything with it up until now with the whole Lethal Ladies thing.
It looks like Skyhawks was that the distribution company that they started when they moved to the state?
Maybe.
Because there's only 4 movies under that company on IMDb, and it's all his movies. So
yeah,
I'm going to assume
it's all the end of his of the movie series. Yeah,
I'm going to assume that they set up an LLC to do production and distribution state like there, because they could probably get some like local tax credits or something.
It's possible. Yeah.
But it's always something with a Sidaris movie, like when it starts up and you hear like the seagulls, you're like, oh, I know what movie this is going to be, or I know who made this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it immediately has a feel to it even before you see the first frame of actual film, you know?
So I guess everything gets solved in the end here. It was weird. More chaotic things happen in this, but at the same time, it was easier to follow
yeah,
than the last one. So I mean, it's fun for what it is. It's quite clear. It's a very different look and feel if you jump back, 10 years earlier to like Hard Ticket to this. Mm-hmm. They almost look like they're done by completely different people, but we have the benefit of seeing the progression over the 10 years.
Yeah, and it makes it seem a lot more gradual for sure.
But yeah, I don't have anything else to say out here. Nothing was egregious in this one in any format.
I mean, like, I found this one funnier than the last couple. I don't like any of the new leads as charismatic as Donna Spears was, or the Vasquez lady.
Roberta Vasquez, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the connection, and it's not due to physical attraction or anything. It's just I don't have that wow factor. Like the last leading character that I liked was from Enemy Gold. The girl from that, I can't remember her name.
Oh, she's one that she didn't come back.
Yeah, because I thought she had an interesting potential arc. I'm thinking, okay, if you're going to be the new Lethal Lady, cool. I like your character. I like your background. I love your on-screen chemistry with everybody. But Julie Strain is too fucking weird.
Was that the Becky Midnight character?
Yeah, her I really liked. But
Susie Simpson, yeah.
Yeah, but once you start getting into these ridiculous fucking code names, it turns into sexy G.I. Joe, and not in a cool way. Well, I don't know.
Did you notice that in the last movie, Julie Strain was the Black Widow, and then here she's Willow Black?
Yeah, I'm like, come on, guys.
I don't understand.
I laugh. Like, is it supposed to be like, is it like evil twins or something? Like, is that what they were maybe going for? That one was an evil. Like, it would have been interesting if that was the. But it opens up. I'll just say this: she's like the CEO or head or director or whatever of their agency within the government. Yeah. And I was hoping they didn't go there, and it almost made it better. Was at the beginning when they're hacked, and they're hacked in like it's like computer room.
Yeah.
Where all of the computers. You mean like the computer lab in what could have been a library or something that you filmed in. Anyway, and then she goes to see the director, and I was like, is everybody in this office going to be just like smoking hot ladies? And it's like, no, there's just 2 old ladies working at reception.
Yeah.
old ladies, and then they walk in to see Julie Strain on like what, a step machine and
Yeah, like a
leopard
step machine
print-
or like an
leopard print
elliptical or
bikini.
something. You leopard print bikini, and the chair. I'm like, you're not even gonna put a towel on. You're gonna sit down and let your sweat go into that chair. You're making it. You're gonna make it a nightmare for the cleaning people to make sure. Like all I could think of was like, does the entire office just smell like sweat because you have workout equipment in your office?
It smells like Julie Strain sweat. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm just thinking.
Supposedly, she chose her costuming for this entire movie, Julie Strain, and provided.
Why am I not
costuming
surprised?
And provided clothes to some of the other ladies.
That must have been a weird conversation. So I brought this in for you. Okay. Julie.
So like instead of like normal sizes where they're like, well, you know, what size are you? They're just measuring busts. Oh, you'll fit into this one. You won't.
Yeah, it's like it was just
And I was just thinking, like, wait, she's in charge, but like, why is she in the office like this? It would have been to me. It would have been more funny if it was on the elliptical or whatever that was. She came in and they're like, you know, code red, and she's like, just a moment, please, while I change. And if all she did was put on a sport jacket and just kept the rest of the outfit the same, and just sat down in her chair. Now we can talk business.
That would have been funny. That would have been funny. It was played so seriously, though. Like the one dude, like the old dude that was in there, like trying to talk to her, did not like look at her chest and was acting like this is totally normal. That was funny,
and that's why I felt like Sidaris, he had a missed opportunity to have her change into her business gear and it just be the jacket, keep the rest of the onesie out, you know, together. And then have Julie like sitting there talking business, like basically bursting out of the jacket. But you know, I mean, we can nitpick all we want, but this was a much more fun movie. This was closer to the stuff that he had done in the late '80s than. But it doesn't mean it's a great movie. There's ridiculous moments. I feel here even more than some of the previous ones. There were more cases of, you know, not just improv, but like single take things that they could have taken an extra, you know, shot or two of to spice it up a little bit. But it is markedly better than Dallas Connection.
Oh, for sure.
Oh God, yeah. So I guess, well, guys, we got only 2 more movies left in the summer of Sidaris. The next movie we're going to be taking a look at will be called Lethal Ladies Return to Savage Beach. That came out in 1998. And then we're going to go all the way back to, I think, the 70s, right, Alex?
Yeah, 1973 with his movie Stacy, which elements of apparently were reworked into Malibu Express like 12 years later. So yeah. We might not go super in depth into that. It's just sort of like, let's peer into what could have been had his career taken off in the 70s instead of the 80s.
Yeah. So I got to say, it's been an interesting journey to watch all these Sidaris movies. And as we go into the fall season, because, hey, I'm sure some of you will start getting ready to go to school. I guess we'll have to figure out something to bring you through the fall season. Maybe we'll do a bunch of horror movies or something. Who knows? But yeah, so once again, guys, thank you for joining us here on the Summer of Sidaris. If you have any feedback, we would love to hear from you. So feedback at ThisWeekInGeek.net. That's usually checked by Alex, but does get shared amongst all of us here. Again, check out our social media. If you have any suggestions for movies you'd like us to cover, I know me and Ken have done some anime stuff. We've done some musicals. We've done some pretty weird stuff. I know me and David Denoyer always talk weird, bizarre horror movies and anthology stuff. So we're always, nothing is off limits here, pretty much, as long as it's Alex can find it, or we can go to The Beat Goes On and buy it.
And then it's hopefully not doesn't end up being an actual porno.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So
which, as you know, we've been fooled before when we were sent things.
Yeah, we're like, hey, wait a second, this is an oh my. So anyway, guys, from the great city of Kitchener, we have been
Alex, the producer.
From the lands of Lansing, Michigan,
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
And I've been your humble video store clerk, closing up for the night. I've been Mike the Birdman saying, be kind, rewind. And we'll catch you next time here on the Summer of Sidaris.
Are either one of these any good? Sir,
What?
are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Quick! Change the channel!
You're wasting your life making shit! Nobody cares! These movies are terrible!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
Day of the Warrior, an Andy Sidaris film. Undercover agents of the Lethal Force have a high-priority mission to stop the Warrior.
Our contact man in Washington has succeeded in breaking into the Lethal Force computer system.
Red alert.
This guy Warrior, who the hell is he anyhow?
He's the mastermind behind $1 billion black market network. And if this break-in has anything to do with him, he'll kill them all. Oh!
It's our worst nightmare, Tyler. Have someone in our organization giving us up. We're gonna get killed.
You've got to think positive.
Positive we're gonna get killed.
The ladies of the Lethal Force are undercover and at the top of their form.
This is better than I expected.
Load all your guns. Look for excitement. And leave your inhibitions behind.
You know what to do.
The Lethal Force is armed and ready for the Day of the Warrior.
Ah! Come on, Foo!
Day of the Warrior, an Andy Sidaris film, starring Pithouse Pets Julie Strain, Julie K. Smith, Playboy Centerfold Shay Marks, American Gladiators Ray Zap Hollett, and WCW wrestling sensation Marcus Bagwell as the Warrior.